you. Welcome to my channel, Whiskey and Wool. My name is Shannon, and this is my Knitter's Life series, season 3, episode 3. This is my third year doing the Knitter's Life series. I talked a little bit about where that name came from in the first episode of this season, and of course way back in the first episode of the first season. Anyway, thank you for being here. Thank you for dropping by and checking me out, whether you are new or returning. I really appreciate hearing from you down in the comments. I love that little back and forth sharing of information that happens, whether it's when you correct me or you share whatever's happening in your area or in your life. I love that. That's why I'm here. I'm here for the community, not here for any revenue. I don't make any money from doing this. I have a job that pays very well and I'm happy with, so there's no harm, no foul, so to speak. But yeah, welcome. Okay. I am going to start this episode the way I normally do, with a gin or whiskey chat. This time it's gin. And you may have noticed that I finished my new design, which I'll talk to you about when you come back. But the gin that I chose was inspired partly by this sweater. It is pink. So anyway, go watch. And if you're not interested, I totally understand. No pressure. I will tell you where to skip to right here. It's usually about 10 minutes forward. Hi, we're here to do a little gin chat with you today. It is, I hope the light's okay. The sun is setting. It's after 5 on a Saturday, and it's time to do a chat. What I'm tasting today is this right here. It is Chapel Down Pinot Noir gin. Did a little digging and reading to figure out what this gin is, and this is a gin that is produced not by a whiskey distiller or a gin distiller necessarily, but by a winery. So you might be familiar with Chapel Down sparkling wine. Apparently in 2018 they won a whole bunch of awards for their sparkling wine. They are a winery that is located in the southeast of England, in the area of Kent, I believe, but it's south of London. I'll pop some pictures on screen of the map. It looks to me to be a very picturesque area of the country. Rolling hills, vineyard for miles. I shouldn't say miles. Pretty far, it looks like. They acquired some new land, I think. I don't know how long. I couldn't find very much about the winery and how long they've been in business. It seems like quite some time. They made wine, and they came out with a gin, a clear gin, a white gin, somewhere around that 2018, 2019. And this gin, this Pinot Noir gin, came out in 2019. They also have a vodka and another sort of aperitif. So they have a pretty broad range of products. But they're primarily known for as far as I can tell, their brut sparkling wine. They say that the territory that or the land where they grow their grapes is similar to the climate and conditions are similar to the Champagne region of France. So I don't know much about their wine. I do enjoy wine, but I don't really study it all that closely in terms of I know there's a lot. So this isn't a wine chat, it's a gin chat. So, so this gin, I hope you can see. Wait, I'm gonna just make it so I can see the camera. It has a very faint pink tint to it. Usually, can you see it? Maybe, no. I think you can pretty much see it's very, very faint. It's like a blush hint to it. They, of course, like most gins, there's not a revealing of everything that they use in the making of it. So we know that they use the Pinot Noir grape skins in the distilling process. They also, of course, juniper, which is an ingredient that tends to differentiate gin from vodka in the processing, as well as a bunch of other botanicals. So I think I've said this before, vodka and gin are made from the same products, except that gin has the introduction of botanicals in the distillation process, and so that is what gives gin flavors. The absence of those botanicals is what makes vodka pretty much flavorless. And people like vodka because it's easy to blend with, make drinks with other ingredients because it's a nice base. Where gin usually comes with a lot of other flavors in the glass. So it tends to be better drink, more best enjoyed either, alone on the rocks or with a splash of soda or tonic, depending on your preference, but also in other ways like Negronis or other drinks like that. Okay, so we know there's juniper, coriander, red berries, rosebud, citrus fruits, rose hip, angelica, and grains of paradise. It is known to be an aromatic pink gin with the delicate aroma of red berries and balanced with juniper and a citrus finish. Yeah, I'm a little nervous to taste this actually because I tasted another gin that was made by a winery, and it had a really grapey taste, and I really didn't like it much. So I don't know. We'll see how this goes down. And then, yeah, and we'll just see, right? Let's see how it tastes, and then I'll tell you what an expert says about it. Okay, I smell the juniper. It does smell sweet, like a little bit. I can smell the red berry, I'm fairly certain. Yeah, there's a little bit of a grapey scent as well. Oh, it's actually pretty nice. It's a nice surprise. Because it has what you would consider sort of those herbal flavors of gin. But then there's this surprise of sort of this berry sweetness. It's got a tartness to it too. Could be citrus, like maybe orangey, some orangey. Reminds me a bit of, maybe this is a stretch, but it reminds me a little bit if you've ever had like a homemade cranberry sauce with orange in it, like orange peel. And maybe sometimes I've made it before myself with orange juice. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. All right, so let's see what experts say. On the nose, mouth-watering smell of strawberry and cream. Oh, I don't know if I smelled cream. This is an incredibly aromatic gin. You don't need to go anywhere near it before the sweet red fruity notes make themselves known. It's a really juicy aroma too, with watermelon and cherries in particular. The strength of fruity tones is such that I can almost taste them, like I'm sucking on a Jolly Rancher. Yeah, it is really strongly scented, I would say. I agree with that. Like, it's a real interesting, for me, it's a very interesting balance of the botanicals and those berries, those berry smells. Taste. More tangy strawberry taste, which leads to effortlessly into the grape flavor of the base spirit. Much of the notes from the aroma are present, but with less sweetness and more sophistication, bitter and tangy. The juniper, angelica, and coriander are certainly more evident here, but not prominent compared to the fruits and florals. Grains of paradise are featured here too. See, I don't know what that tastes like. I don't get the rose. Yeah, I don't get the rose. This would be good with like an orange slice, I think. Neat with an orange slice, or maybe with soda, like a mixed drink with soda and raspberries, I think. This expert actually recommends it with tonic and lemon peel. It says, okay, overall, the overall impression from this taster that I'm reading from is the Pinot Noir is much further from a classic gin than the Bacchus gin from the same producer. And it may appeal to fewer people. The big berry presence is delicious, and it covers new ground for this taster, and without straying too far from that classic gin taste that if you like gin, you would probably like. So yeah, this is a very unique gin, I would say. And oh, I forgot to say, it retails for around $40 in the US and about 32 to 35 pounds in the UK. Euro people, I think you can just convert. You can probably figure it out from there. I hope you enjoyed this rather brief gin chat, and I hope you are sipping on a drink of your own and get a chance to also explore. And I will see you again soon. Bye. Yeah, well, let's get into the finished objects. I have a few. And I'm gonna actually put in a clip here of a finished object that I no longer have with me because I have gifted it, and more about that later as well. Yeah, watch that. Couple minutes. Come right back. I wanted to show you the Manhattan hat by Tori Yu that I recently finished, because by the time I podcast next, this will have been gifted, and yeah, I won't have it to show you. So I finished it a couple days ago. It is this sort of reddish color that I achieved by holding together a bright pink mohair silk with a strand of orange Todd from Lamb & Kid. So this is the orange. I used this in my Funfetti sweater for trim, and I had 2 extra skeins because I had bought 3 skeins thinking it was going to be one of the main colors, and I ended up switching. And then the hot pink that I'm using is from Molly Girl, and it is mohair silk. I don't remember the color name. I've had it for years. But yeah, basically these 2 colors held together make this. And I really love the effect. I hope the person I'm gifting it to also loves the way it looks. I think it will be a hit. Seems to be in the color family of things that she normally wears. So yeah, this is just such a nice mindless pattern. I do want to show you how long this hat is when you do the double brim. The pattern is written so that you can do single brim, double brim, or triple double fold, one, no fold, one fold, two folds. So that is how big it is. It's really funny looking, but folded up, it looks perfectly fine. And it's super warm around your head. But yeah, the Manhattan hat by Tori Yu. So, yeah, so that was really cool. I gifted that hat to Lorian. You may know her by her Instagram handle, which I will put on screen here. She does a lot of knitting related reels and such. And yeah, I saw her this past weekend at Vogue Knitting Live. Let me talk to you about this sweater, and then I'll sprinkle in some Vogue Knitting Live information, like my take on it this year, and some footage, a little bit of footage that I took. I will intersperse. Okay, what am I wearing? I am wearing a new design by me. I have, I think I've settled on a name. You can let me know how you like this, but a few years back when tiny background about my design, about me designing knits. I was a knitwear designer right out of fashion school. I went to fashion school. I got a BA, and I got a BA in fashion. Actually, I got a BS, a Bachelor's of Science in Fashion Studies. And I went into the garment industry in New York City. I started to work in the garment center in New York City, working my way up, and I ended up as head knitwear designer for a very large company that got absorbed by Liz Claiborne at some point after I left. I worked in the industry for about 10 years before, and I became a mom during that time, and that industry isn't really very parent or even female friendly, I would say. So definitely not friendly towards working moms. Working dads, if they're not, involved in parenting, it's fine. Anyone who's not involved in parenting, you'd be fine. But yeah, so I ended up leaving to go to graduate school to become something else. A counselor, artist, something, and I ended up as a professor and an administrator in higher education, because once I went back to school, I loved it so much I ended up staying there. That's the nutshell version. So I've been working in academia for the past 22 years. So most of my career has been in academia. Anyway, I dabble in knitwear design. I always have, from this beginning of being a knitwear designer professionally, occasionally I'm someone who probably does a lot of mods naturally on modifications on knit patterns myself. But if I ever cannot find a pattern for something that I want to make, it doesn't, I can go ahead and create that pattern. And that's pretty much the way I design, because I do have a very busy job, and it's lucrative, so I'm doing well, and I don't really need to make a living from my creative work at all, which is nice because it gives you a lot of freedom. So I occasionally do make designs. I think I have 7 or 8 designs, mostly sweaters, a couple dresses, some socks, stockings, Christmas stockings, which are actually my best-selling patterns. I think there's 3 sets by now. The last one are my favorite. You'll hear more about those in the fall and winter, because I think I'm going to be making a couple more this year. I don't talk about my patterns unless it's relevant to the other content that I'm doing. It's not, a big part of who I am. It was in my past, but it's not anymore. So it doesn't really, I talk about knitting here and my other fiber related crafting like spinning, but I don't really talk about design work per se, unless I have a new design. So this is the first design I've made since 2020. I had a couple patterns released right around like the end of 2019, early 2020. And then the pandemic happened, and we were all, you don't need me to tell you what happened. We all know what happened. It was a shit show, right? Anyway, so I haven't made anything. I've been knitting other people's patterns, which I'm perfectly happy to do if it's suiting the need I have. But I do design when I want to. And I had an inspiration for this design in the fall of last year of 2022, and I really wanted to make a hairy or fuzzy sweater, big oversized V-neck, like big loose V-neck with these big bold stripes. And I got into my head this idea. I do a lot of talk about color theory here on this channel. I intersperse it again if it's always as things relate to whatever it is I'm making. I don't go out of my way to do tutorials or anything like that unless they relate to what I'm making or what I'm talking about. So I talk a lot about color theory. I usually use this handy little tool here. I have another bigger wheel here. This is more for painting and blending colors for paints and probably dyes too. Gives you a little bit better, more comprehensive about blending. But this is perfectly fine for something like this. And my thought was, like, I really wanted to explore contrast colors across the wheel. So in this sweater, which I hope I put pictures on screen already so you can see me. I took a couple pictures. I did wear this to Vogue on Friday. So I took a couple pictures of myself so you could see the full silhouette. It's pretty loose. This yarn also, which I'll tell you about in a minute, did grow quite a lot. So I ended up with an even slouchier style than I had imagined, but it's fine. Like, I love it. Anyway, my intention was to create a pattern that would help the knitter who chooses it to easily select colors. So there will be a lot of information in the pattern pattern's not out yet. Pattern hasn't even gone to testing. I actually need to finish. I wasn't quite happy with the shape of the V, so I need to modify the V a little bit and then grade. I need to grade this section of the pattern. The rest of the pattern's all graded, and I think there are 6 or 7 sizes, a very full, broad range of sizes. So I do need to do those minor editings, and then it goes to tech editing and then out to testers to preview knit it. And there will be some comprehensive notes about how to choose your colors in the pattern. But basically what my instructions are: find a color that you love. That's your main color. Then pick 2 tones off of that color. So tones would be like in here. So tonal means same pigmentation, just lighter or darker than that. So if you picked like this pale color here, your other 2 colors would be the ones below it. So you have 3 tonal colors, and then you have 1 high contrast. And to get the high contrast, you jump across the color wheel. Here's your high contrast over here, this guy. And that's basically what I've done. I've picked 3 colors that are in here, in this wheelhouse here, this red violet. And then I've jumped across and picked a swampy green for the contrast color. There's a lot of possibilities with this sweater. You could do the same colors that I have, but change up the main color. Like maybe the dark color, this color is your main color, the dark color move, like those 2 colors swap places. You could do a completely neutral one if you wanted. You could do like black and white and shades of gray. I'd probably, if I was choosing black, I would do the white would be the high contrast, of course. And then the shades of gray could be in the center. That would be really pretty, actually. So yeah, so that is the concept behind this sweater. I thought it would be fun to not only have a pattern that is, you know, a really current silhouette that is going to be quite popular, and we'll see it everywhere in fall 23, but also to have a pattern that teaches you a little bit about color and how to navigate the vast shades and tones and all those everything that you see out in the world, to be able to, you know, navigate that in a way that will also help educate you about picking colors for your other projects. So yeah, so that's the impetus of this design, and I have these 4 colors. I love it. I had told you I was going to tell you the name. So, and that's how I digressed onto my knit design, my hand knitting design journey. A few years ago, so in 2019 or maybe earlier, maybe even in 2018, I had thought about like, oh, you know, I've got this whiskey and wool theme going on. Oh, the whiskey and wool theme was born in 2019. So it was in 2019 where I was like, I should name all my new designs something that has to do with whiskey, because that's kind of my, you know, one of my things that I do here is talk about whiskey. So in the spirit of that, I have a sweater called Rye Layering Tea. And then I have Saucy Surrey, which really isn't, Saucy Surrey Bomber Jacket, which really isn't necessarily directly related to whiskey, but you know, people get a little saucy when they drink whiskey, so it relates. It's tangential, I think. This one, I'm going with a name that relates to whiskey that is inspired by the yarn itself. The yarn itself is Fuwa Fuwa, which is a Japanese term for, I think it means fluffy, or floofy, something like that. But it's Fuwa Fuwa is a term that is used to describe these big, fat, thick pancakes. So this yarn is from Moondrake. Sorry about the crinkling. Moondrake Co, which she's in Oklahoma, I think, Oklahoma City. So Moondrake yarn, and she's Asian. I don't know if she's Japanese, but this yarn is named for this Japanese pancake. So I thought it'd be fun to riff off of that a bit. So the name that sorry about the big lead up to this name. You must be going crazy. Just tell us the name. Okay. I am going to call it Sutoreito. I think that's how you say it, Sutoreito. It means straight in Japanese, which is the way that you would order if you wanted to drink a whiskey straight or a whiskey neat, which means no ice. That's the way you would order it. You'd use that term, Sutoreito. I'll have put the spelling on screen for you so you can see, and also the pronunciation. It's going to take me a little bit to get used to it, but I think it's a good name. There aren't any other patterns with that name, which delighted me, of course, because it's super hard to find a name that has not already been taken, because there are literally millions of patterns on Ravelry and elsewhere. Patterns that don't make it on Ravelry too. Just drinking a little ice water. I didn't say, but it is Sunday afternoon, and it's kind of a cold. Oh, it's Super Bowl Sunday. I don't know if you watch. Hopefully, you're watching this instead of the Super Bowl. No teams that I'm interested in are playing really. So, yeah, I might catch it here and there, but I'm not gonna have a watch. I don't think. Anyway. As I said, I used 4 colors. So this first one here is Electric Berry, which is this. I I over-ordered because I didn't know the yardage. So I ordered 6 skeins of this. I only needed 3. My size is in the middle of the range, I'm pretty sure. There might be 4 sizes up and 3 sizes down, or it might be 2 or 3 sizes, 2 or 3, I can't remember. But mine is a 48-inch bust. It might even be a little bigger. I haven't measured it since I blocked it. This second color, my mid-tone, is called Electric Lilac. I think you're getting pretty good representation. The colors are showing up slightly cooler. It's this, I blame this, which I'll talk about. This is one of my whips. I blame that color actually for blowing out the camera. I think sometimes when you get a large amount of color on screen, the camera doesn't know what to do and it kind of just, mediates it completely. My lime green color, swamp green, it's not really lime, it's probably more slime, not lime, is Lichen. All by Moondrake. Moondrake, one of the reasons why I chose her Fuzzy Fuwa Fuwa for this pattern is because she has a really broad range of colors and you could really go crazy like with the different color combos and how to put them together to make this sweater. And you absolutely do not have to follow my color rules. You can do whatever you want. So you can just pick, a few colors that you love. It's just my way of embedding a color lesson into a pattern, which I thought would be fun for some of you. But if it's not fun for you, you can ignore that part and do what you like. Yeah, so that is the way the stripes lay out. You can see there. Also getting a little bit of a glow from a window. That's right there. But I like it, so I'm going to leave it. Yeah, I was thinking about shoving Martha off screen, but my bed's a real mess over there. I mean, it's not my bed, it's the guest bed, but yeah, it's a real mess over there. Desperately needs cleaning. So this is it. This is my new design. I'll talk about it more, and I will have probably little announcements in the next few episodes, just giving you some updates about where it is at. A couple people have reached out to me to preview test. I'm happy to make that happen for you if you're interested in preview testing. It just means you are preview knitting or test knitting, if you want to call it that. It just means that I give you the pattern for free, you knit it and provide me with any feedback about it, about what your experience is knitting it, whether or not you found some phrases confusing and things like that. So it's just kind of my way of making sure that the pattern is accessible to all different types of learners and people who read things or interpret things in different ways. So yeah, a couple of you have already reached out. If you're interested, if this is the first you're hearing about the potential of this testing or preview testing, preview knitting, down below in the description box, you'll find my email. But you can also reach out to me through Instagram or Ravelry. It's going to be easier if you reach out to me, not on Instagram, because Instagram doesn't really filter messages in a good way to keep up with, to do threads necessarily. So it's going to be better if you email me to my email or through Ravelry, because those messages come right into my inbox. So yeah, this is Sutoreito. I did hold 2 strands together to get the fabric. And it is knit on US size 7 needles, so pretty big needles. So it should be a fairly fast knit. So Rochelle of Moondrake calls her Fuwa Fuwa base a fingering weight base. So 2 strands together should equal a DK. I will be knitting another one. I am not going to use the Fuwa Fuwa again. I didn't tell you what the Fuwa Fuwa is, in case you're not familiar. It is a 70% brushed cashmere. There you go. And 30% superwash merino. And the yardage is 350 yards per 50 grams. My size and smaller, you're going to need three balls, 2 balls, the light color, the rose quartz color, which I didn't show you. You'd think this is my first time podcasting. Rose quartz, which is just a really pretty pale pink. This is my second ball of this, so I needed, one full ball. Actually, both of these are my second balls. I needed one full skein and then a little bit of the next one. So two balls, 3 of the main color, maybe 4 if you're a loose knitter. For my size or smaller. The green, you only need 1. Because this is how much I have left, which is, decent amount. Probably only need 1 for most of the sizes. Maybe only the biggest size might need 2 of this, would be my guess. But I'll have to do all of that. I need to do all of that math to figure out those yarn yields. And I'm guessing that the main color for the bigger sizes, you'd need 4, for sure. 1 size up for me, 4, and further 4 skeins, maybe 5 for the last one. So anyway, Fuwa Fuwa, being a cashmere mostly base, is expensive yarn. So this is an expensive sweater. So for the second one, the one that I'm going to knit along with my testers or preview knitters, will be a solid one out of some hand spun that I am holding with. I haven't cast it on yet, but I will. So this is the hand spun. It's really pretty. It's basically a white with lots of neon pops, and it should stripe a bit the way you're seeing it stripe in the skein. So I'm basically going to have like a big slouchy v-neck with no color blocks. And I'm going to be holding, this is a fingering weight, so I'm going to be holding 2 strands of mohair. Here's a swatch I made. 2 strands of mohair with this. Should be pretty. Nice for spring. It'll be fun to knit in this springtime. Yeah, so that's Sutoreito. Sutoreito. I'm saying it like an Italian, I feel, instead of a Japanese person. I have to listen to that pronunciation guide over and over to get it right. Okay, so yeah, that's this. And you saw my other finished object. I have one other finished object, which is on the bed. I'm going to grab it. Be right back. I finished this throw that I made for my boy. One of my sons requested a throw, and he and his partner love black, gray, and white. They tend to wear a lot of it. They have pops of color for accents, but the general theme of the home and the way they dress, black is definitely the color that they love. So yeah, I decided I'm moving house soon. Like in 2 months, I'll be moving house. So you'll be hearing about it on and off. I talked about it a lot in the first episode. Last episode, I gave you an update that I found a place. I'm in the process of buying a new place, and then once I take possession of it, I will be doing some renovations, and then I'll move in. So, which is why I can say it's about at least 2 months away, might be even 3 months away. We'll see. Anyway, because I'm moving house, I was really keen to use up yarn that I had. And so when he requested this blanket, this throw, I was like, all right, what do I have on hand that is in colors that they like? And I found that I had 10 skeins of fingering weight yarn. I love knitting with fingering weight yarn, but I have collected way more single skeins of fingering weight yarn than I will probably knit I had no plans. I just was collecting. I went through this period like in 2015, 16, 17, where I was just like buying pretty skeins because there were a lot of new companies coming out, and I was really enchanted by, the way indie dyed skeins look, with like the speckles and all of that. And that was just so stunning and different from many of the commercial yarns that we were so used to seeing. So I collected a lot, and I counted, I think, at the beginning of the year, I had over 70 single skeins, just one skein, which makes a great pair of socks, but I don't need 70 pairs of socks. Nor do I need 70 hats or, or more shawls where you're combining all these multiple skeins and stuff. So I was really keen to use up these single skeins. So I pulled out 10 that were in the gray black color family, put them together, and held them together to knit a 1x1 rib knit blanket. And don't worry, I'm not going to be able to get it all on screen. And what happened with the fabric is that it ended up being a really pretty marl. Really pretty. And the reason so this is probably like the 5th or 6th throw I've made that is 1x1 rib. I do 1x1 because it's reversible, and I like the way it looks better than a garter, because garter would also be reversible. I think this looks a little more sophisticated because when you block it, of course, as you're knitting it, these ribs are closed very close together, but when you block it, they open up. You can open them up, and it looks like just knit fabric to someone who doesn't knit. So I just really liked that look, or I think garter can look like the backside of a stockinette. So yeah, those 10 skeins, I knit this on a US 15 or 10 millimeter needle, big fat needles. And I had two of my 10 skeins were actually, or one of my 10 skeins was actually two 200-gram skeins. So when I got to the end of that first 200 grams of fingering weight, I had knit about 18 inches. So I could quickly see, or maybe 20 inches, I could quickly see that 10 skeins was not going to be enough yarn to get me to, like, I wanted to do a 45 by 60 or 55, like somewhere in there size for them. So I went into my partial skein box and pulled out all of the partial skeins that I had in the same color family, in that gray, black, white with black, like mostly black gray skeins, and I had a lot of them. And I showed them last episode. All that is left of that is this little dab here. Just a few little balls. So this is all I have left in that color family. Everything else got knit into here. And what happened with those 10 skeins, like when I got nine of those skeins were they were somewhere in that 400 to 465 or so yards. So each of them ended one after the other. So it was like boom, 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 boom. And there was this big section where I had all these tails hanging because I was swapping out, like putting in another partial skein to knit into this massive blanket. But the whole thing, the overall effect worked, and there really isn't you don't really see easily where the color changing happened, where the yarn changing happened. They all just kind of blended it in together to make this really cool effect. And I was not careful about the blend. So some of those skeins were 100% superwash merino, some of them were merino nylon, some of them were merino cashmere nylon. So the MCN, the 80-10-10 blend that we often use in shawls or in socks or something. So I wasn't careful about that. I just put them all together. It was fine, totally fine. So yeah, it's all basically superwash of one style or another. The other thing I did was I cast on 73 stitches. I did an an odd number because I wanted the border to be the same on both sides. So I didn't want it to look lopsided. So on this side you're seeing the purl, and on this side you're seeing the knit. So it was just knit one, purl one, knit one, purl one, knit one, and then you know, all the way across, and you end with knit one because it's an odd number, and then switch it over and knit the knits and purls the purls, purl the purls until you're done. The thing is massive, and I think this might be the best blanket I've ever made. And I'd started at the beginning saying I'd made 5 or 6 of these already, doing the exact same thing. I think what makes this really, it is very heavy. I would say I probably use the equivalent of about 15, 16 full skeins. I haven't weighed it. I don't know if I have a scale big enough to put this on because my yarn scale is this little bitty thing. Which I guess if I had a big bowl or box, I could probably figure it out. I have a bigger scale in my kitchen, but I don't know if I care that much, I guess. But yeah, I would say it's somewhere in that like 16 skeins that I used. So it is very heavy, but oh my God, it's beautiful. Like I laid it out on my bed. And I'll put those pictures in here. My bed's a double size, so you can get an idea. It's basically like 45 by 66. I measured it recently. And yeah, so it's really, really beautiful. I am so happy with it. And wow, was it satisfying to use up those single skeins finally. Because they have been in my stash for years. And yeah, it was just awesome. Oh my gosh, look at that. It is so pretty. So pretty. I just really love it. I think they're gonna love it. It'll make a really beautiful gift, and like I said, so satisfying so this, I'm sitting next to a dresser that I use to store my yarn in. This dresser is not coming with me. I have a different storage solution for the yarn. That's bigger actually than this piece. And two of these drawers were packed with my single skeins of yarn, and they are emptying out, and it is lovely. It is lovely. Not to mention my Ravelry stash page, which is pretty much up to date. There's some new yarn that I got at Vogue that I'll talk about towards the end. And some of this Fuwa Fuwa that I have left over, I've never cataloged it because when I got the yarn, I knit it right away into this. But yeah, that is very happy with that. I highly recommend if you have, the beauty of this, of doing it that way with 10 strands, holding 10 strands together. You can use skeins that you think are ugly, like those mystery skeins that you got from an indie dyer, and you're just like, oh, this isn't in my wheelhouse. Like, you can put those together with that, and it's just gonna blend in and be like background and like kind of look great. So highly recommend if you have skeins hanging around that are driving you crazy, that you just want to dump. Yeah, so now my single skein stash is down to right around 60, I'd say, maybe a little bit less. And that just feels so nice. I have another one planned, another blanket planned for my other son, one of my other sons. My oldest has gotten mini hand knits from me because they have a child, and I've given them blankets in the past, because there was a baby on the way, and also, they live in a bigger home because there's more of them and stuff. So, yeah, I've given them blankets. I actually gave them a throw earlier this year that I had made, a year or two ago. And I made a throw for them when they were pregnant in 2020. So yeah, they've had plenty. So this one's for one of my younger sons, and then my youngest son, when I mentioned that I was making something for the middle guy, he said, I want one too. And I was like, okay, cool. And he loves purples. So I have a lot of purple yarn. I actually think I have more purple than I had of blacks and grays. I mean, I love blacks and grays too. Who doesn't? They're so wearable, right? So I have pulled together a basket of purple skeins. There are some blues thrown in there too because he loves blues. And there are some skeins that I'm not crazy about that I threw in there. So yeah, I have put together a bunch, and I also found a lot of partial skeins in purples. So, and I have backup. So I have plenty of purple to make a really generous size purple throw. I ordered a new needle, another Chowagoo. This one is a 12.75 millimeter, a US 17. So, as I was knitting the gray and black one, I was thinking to myself, I probably should have used bigger needles just to make a looser knit, because I think it was really dense for when I was knitting it. And I also really wanted a needle with a long cord. So this one is a 40 inch. So I'm going to try the purple one for my son Ryan. I'm going to be making, using a US 17, and it's a 40-inch cord. So, because one of the other things was the cord that I was using of the 15 was, I think, only 24-inch, and it was a little bit much. Like the cord, it was kind of heavy on my lap and stuff. Like, and I think 40-inch cord will give me a little more comfort with that. So we'll see what happens. Stay tuned. I'll tell you all about it in the next couple episodes probably. I really want to finish that before I move, so I don't think I'll have any trouble. The other one took me about 3 weeks to make. It is very much you cannot travel with this. Well, you could, but it would be really a pain, and you'd have to take a suitcase just with the yarn in this project because it is bulky. So for me, it's a sit on the couch and knit kind of project. But that's fine. Totally fine. I'm excited. I'm excited to get another like 15 skeins out of my single skein stash. I'm also going to put in there some old, I don't think I have it here, but some old hand spun. That was some of the first hand spun that I spun, which, I actually was happy with it, and I was planning to knit it into a sweater, but I never got around to it, and it's very much like sort of this very deep dark purple, which I think I'll be able to, because it's a sweater's quantity, I'll be able to carry it all the way through, and maybe at times carry 2 strands if need be, if I'm under pressure needing yarns. And I think it'll kind of like set a really nice tone. The only downside of that, using hand spun, is that I don't think that hand spun is superwash, where everything else will be superwash. So that boy will need to be cautioned about the way he launders the blanket. And just know that if he launders it in a machine, it could shrink. But we'll see, hopefully. Okay, sorry about that. I got a phone call from one of my sons, and that took a long time. And I don't remember where I was. So I think I was about to talk about whips, because I don't think I've talked about what Martha's wearing. Martha is wearing, can you see it well? Ward by Sloane Rosenthal. She is one of the partners of Hudson and West, which is a yarn company. And yeah, I found the pattern. It was something that I was really interested in making, and I had purchased some Wensleydale worsted from Lobby and Aimée. It's this one. Lobby and Aimée. It is a blend of Falkland Corriedale, Falkland Merino, and Wensleydale, 50, 25, 25. And yeah, it's available in it's a white base, so it's or cream white base, so it's available in all of her beautiful colors. The green is much brighter than what you're seeing on screen, especially over here, even here. Yeah, it's a really rich green. So I'll put a picture on screen in better lighting, so you get an idea of the color. The sweater is knit bottom up and has a cable detail, which this is the first time you can see it really well because it was smaller. I've made a lot of progress on this. I think last time I showed it to you, it was only about here. So I've knit up, I knit it in the round. She gives you directions to knit it in pieces, but tells you can adapt it to knitting in the round. So I've got the back done up to the armpit. And I'm working on the front. And the front is pretty close to being done. When I get up here, you of course work one side and then the other so that you end up making room for the neck. But yeah, this sweater, I love it. It's great. But the entire thing is textured, even though this is a garter panel. And I'm knitting flat now. So when you get to the armholes, you do have to knit flat. That's why you're seeing this cord, because this is from, the cord that's holding the stitches from the back. And it'll be basically right there. It's a drop shoulder. And yeah, so I'm knitting flat, going back and forth. I was going to say this pattern, because it's textured so much and you're doing those cables and you're doing a textured stitch on the side as well, it's not mindless at all. You really need to pay attention. And there have been many times where I've been distracted with either talking with someone or with what I'm watching on TV, and I've had to tink back. So I have tinked back probably, the amount I've tinked back is probably enough to have finished the whole body. Okay, other whips. I have done a little bit on this second turquoise Manhattan hat that I've been working on by Tori Yu. Sorry, I dropped a stitch. Dropped a couple stitches. So just picking those up before I show you. Yeah, so this has been, what I knit on in meetings and stuff, when I'm, not running a meeting, but sitting there listening. Yeah, it's a Manhattan hat. I made one just like this before, and I finished it earlier this year, and I wear it all the time. But I realized that I had enough of the yarn. I'm holding 3 strands together, so I'm holding 2 strands of the same fingering weight, sock weight, and 1 strand of mohair. And when I finished the first one, I realized I had enough to make a second one, and I was in a little bit of a fog in terms of I just didn't have the bandwidth to think about what else I should knit, and I was like, you know what, I really want to use up the yarn. I'm just going to knit another one, and I'm going to gift it to a very dear friend who who I will love to twin with. We'll love being twins, even if we're, we don't hang out all the time, like once a month or so, but it's not like we're walking around arm in arm. But yeah, so that is that project. I have about that much. I'm not in a rush to get it done. Just something, that's one of my mindless knits, just a mindless knit to work on while, it's bring it along with me whenever I think I might be, sitting for 10 or 15 minutes somewhere, waiting room, or waiting for, waiting on someone. I bring that, waiting for your table at dinner or whatever. I have a new cast on as well. This is my last knit. I cast on, this is something I've been wanting to make for quite some time. I cast on the Stockholm vest by Petite Knits, and it is a V-neck. I think she has a round neck one too, but I wanted to do the V-neck. I already know how I'm going to style this. I have a blouse with a really pretty collar that I think will just look so pretty under this. This is in the spirit of using up old stash. This is some old stash. This is probably among my oldest indie dyed yarn stash that I have. And that is what inspired me to make this. This is another hold 2 strands together, a strand of mohair and a strand of some yarn that is a single ply silk merino blend, superwash blend. So it's got a high silk content. It's really, really pretty. I bought this, I think, in 2016 or 2017. And I bought this mohair 2 years ago to go with it because I realized that the only way this was going to be a fabric that I liked and would also be strong would be to put it with mohair. So I bought mohair from Chelsea Yarns. All right, I'll finish telling you about the mohair, then we'll backtrack to this silk. She was having a fire sale on some one of a kind. So this was a one of a kind kid mohair silk 7228 blend. And because I have 3 skeins of this yarn, I bought 3 skeins of this so that I would have enough to hold it double. This is not Acid Veil Dye Works anymore. It is, I think she's called the Enchanted Kettle now. I believe she's still dyeing. She called this Silky Singles, and it is 70% superwash merino, 30% silk. So that's why you see this beautiful shine. And the colorway is called Nebula Cult. Again, quite old. I have more of each of them, and what was interesting to me was that none of the mohair or the silk yarns really matched each other. So they were all kind of, I'm in that position where I'm probably going to have to do some alternating at some point. So I just want to get past shaping the neck on this pattern, but you can see like this, maybe these two, this is the brownest I think of the 3, this one here, maybe these two, but these two, this one is an odd one, and I probably won't need it since this is a vest, so that might end up going into that purple blanket that I was talking about. So yeah, I want to get far enough along on this so I know whether or not I can go ahead and throw one of these skeins into that purple blanket. The mohair too, they're also quite different. Like this one is got very little gold and this has a lot more gold in it. So yeah, it definitely is going to be an alternating skein scenario at some point further on in the project. So we'll see. It is the pattern is top down. I'm knitting on a size 6 needle. The pattern called for a 7. I didn't get gauge with a 7. It's a tangled mess right now. But I did get gauge going down 1 needle size, and yeah, coming along. It's stockinette, the whole thing, with 1x1 rib trim on the armhole and rib trim around the neck. Yeah, it should be pretty nice, and I think it's making really nice fabric for this garment. It's suited for this. The fabric is suited for this garment. That's what I'm trying to say. So yeah, this has been really nice to work on, and yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do next. I know I'm gonna cast on that purple blanket pretty soon. Okay, I have a little bit of stash that I did get from Vogue Knitting Live. Let me tell you a little bit about Vogue. So Vogue this year for me, well, first of all, it was the very first time since the pandemic that Vogue has been back live in New York. Vogue Knitting New York City for many years was held in January, right around Martin Luther King weekend, like either the weekend before, the weekend of, weekend after, somewhere in that like January 15th, 20th, around there. And I went in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. And the event was getting bigger and bigger each year. It was pretty big when I first went, the first time I went. But it had grown and grown. And in 2020, it was massive. It was maddening. And it's a full, flight festival, but indoors in a big hotel in the middle of Times Square. And yeah, I didn't know what to expect this year because they had taken 2021, 2022 off. So they were off for 2 years. They only did online events for a while, and then they started to do smaller cities. And then this was their first year back in New York. And it was much smaller. So I only went on Friday. I did not go on Saturday. I think on Saturday, and Saturday always was the bigger day. Like Friday was a good day to preview and kind of mingle with friends and get into the marketplace without it being too maddening. And I remember when I went in 2020, I had talked in the subsequent years in 2018, 2019, and 2020, I talked about going on Friday and how nice it is to go on Friday to look, because then you can really see the marketplace isn't usually as full on Fridays as it can be on Saturdays. And I remember thinking in 2020, before the pandemic hit, thinking to myself that, wow, Fridays aren't good anymore. You may as well just go on Saturday, because Fridays were equally maddening, like where the marketplace is really crowded and you're like kind of, side scrunching down aisles because it's too packed. Had no idea what to expect this time around. I went only on Friday. I did not go on Saturday. Saturday, and looking at the pictures and looking at other people who have talked about posted on Instagram or other social media, it looks like Saturday was very busy. Friday, it was pretty manageable. There was one corner they split it on 2 floors, the 5th floor and the 6th floor of the Marriott Hotel in Times Square. You register on the 4th floor, coat checks on the 3rd floor. So you check your coat on the 3rd floor, go up a flight, check in, go up a flight. Then you're on the floor where there are booths and stuff like that, and exhibitions. And there was like a few art exhibitions like there usually are. There's usually like a lot of events on the stage where there'll be like, fashion shows and things like that. There were no events on the stage this time around on Friday. In the past, there have been. Like I saw Stephen West in 2020 on Friday. He did a book launch, I think, at that point. I think he was launching one of his books. So it was pretty empty, which I was grateful for. Of course, I'm having a very low buy year because I'm trying to de-stash and use up my stash that I have, because I'm nervous about storage in my new place. So really, really watching my budget, as well as just keeping an eye on how much stuff I have, trying to minimize as much as possible. So I really wasn't interested. There were a couple things that I wanted to see that I had on a shopping list, and that was it. I was really going more to hang out with friends. I also met this other woman, Michelle, who's a friend of Lorian's, and she came along with us. She was walking around. Michelle walked around with us for a little while in Vogue, and then the 3 of us went to dinner in the marketplace, and then the 3 of us went to dinner afterwards when we were done wandering the marketplace. We had 8:00 dinner reservations at a restaurant right down the street, so it was really convenient for all of us, and then we were able to each head home from that point. So I had a wonderful time meeting them and wandering the marketplace. Before I talk about them and my stuff, what I bought, I wanted just finish by saying the marketplace also surprised me in that there weren't as many vendors as there had been in the past. Some of the really big players that are normally there were not there, like Harrisville Design wasn't there. They usually had a huge 2 or 3 stall booth. There were some big stores that weren't there, and other stores whose booths were much smaller, and yarn companies whose booths were smaller. There were some sort of like knitting adjacent booths too, which I'd never seen at Vogue before because it had always been packed with yarn vendors and yarn companies and stores, yarn stores, local yarn shops that come in. I would attribute that to like some of these companies sort of figuring out other ways to reach their customers, and maybe exhibiting at a big event like Vogue became less important to them due to the pandemic, because they had to pivot. They pivoted, and then, this is what happened. Like, Vogue ends up not being as robust. And in a way, it was kind of nice. Like, it was kind of like a throwback to a smaller festival where it was really manageable to walk around. I never walked by a booth and was like, oh, I can't get in there. The most crowded booth was Brooklyn General Store, and that was because Aimée from Lobby and Aimée was there, meeting and talking and chatting with people, and Joji Locatelli was also there, in and out, and then that became a magnet for other well-known people in the knitting world to pop up and hang out and socialize right around that booth. And luckily they were in a corner that was near an entrance, so it was easy to navigate around that crowd. And Lorraine and I were able to get in the booth without too much trouble. And there were also a lot of clerks that we were able to say, hey, can you just reach that and hand that to me? And they were willing to do that. So we never felt like we couldn't get in the booth, or we couldn't see the things that we wanted to see. Again, like neither one of us, like Lorianne was looking for a very particular color and in a particular weight, and she wasn't particular about who made the yarn. She just wanted that particular color and particular weight. And so we kind of, every booth we went into, we were looking for that for her. And then I was looking for white mohair, like naked, undyed mohair, which was everywhere. And I ended up finally settling on some. I walked into a booth that was a new to me yarn producer. It's called DHG. They're an Italian company, so it's made in Italy. And it is, standard kind of mohair blend. It is the, let me just make sure I'm not lying about that. Yeah, 75-25, 75 mohair, 25 silk. So, more 3-to-1, more evenly 3-to-1 than 72-28 blend of those. And it's fine, and I'm going to be using it for the sweater that I talked to you about earlier, where I'm holding 2 strands of mohair. So I purchased 3 strands. It was very, very reasonable. So I saw undyed skeins of mohair from one vendor, and they were $24. These were $15, maybe a little more with tax and stuff. So these were really reasonable. So I felt like this was something that I couldn't bypass. It was such a good buy. So 3 skeins later, I've got the mohair that I need for this project. And this was a card that they gave me that shows their broad color offerings. Besides mohair, they had wool, some different wools and stuff. I admit I didn't pay that close attention to the other yarns in their booth because I was pretty single-minded on like, this is all I need. I don't think I need to get anything else. So that was a really good find. They also gave me a coupon code for 20% off, valid until the end of April, if there's anything else that I want to purchase from them. And they ship worldwide. They're in Italy. They had lovely Italian accents. I chatted with them a little bit about my experiences in Italy, which have all been so positive, and I just really loved chatting with them and buying their yarn. It was really, really great. The only other purchase I made ended up being this beautiful one skein of this beautiful BFL DK BFL BFF from Utopia. I think they are, yeah, I think they're a local yarn shop. Yeah, Utopia Fiber Shop. So I don't know who spins. Okay, wait. It says it right here. I don't have. Let me just tell you what it says here. It says this yarn is hand dyed in small batches, in small batches in small pots. Purchase enough for your project. Slight differences are possible within the same dye lot. Work with 2 skeins for best results, or alternate. I think that's what they mean. We use metal. Does that say metal? Yeah, we use metal-free professional acid dyes that have superior color fastness and vibrancy of color. This makes your yarn safe for the environment and also for you. So it's 100% BFL, Blue Face Leicester, non-superwash, so that's cool. It's a DK weight, so it's 265 yards in a 4-ounce put-up. This is going to be a Manhattan hat. I just loved the feel of this yarn, and I really wanted to try it. And this ended up being what Lorian bought as well. She didn't buy this color. She bought a different color. But this was the particular yarn and the particular weight in a particular color, or the particular weight yarn and the particular color she ended up buying from this company. And I just think this is going to be, being that it's BFL, it's going to be a very hard wearing yarn, and I think it's something that I'm going to reach for over and over. I don't think I'm going to hold a strand of lace weight fuzziness with this for this particular pattern. I think I'm just going to knit that Manhattan hat pattern using just the skein, and I think it'll be fine. I might end up getting a slightly smaller gauge, but ultimately I think it'll be fine. So yeah, those are my purchases from Vogue. I was also very interested in buying the Neons and Neutral book that's out by Aimée of Lobby and Aimée, called Neons and Neutrals. I thought the book launched already. It's not launching until March 2nd. But they did have copies there that you could look through. And then they were giving us these brochures that has all the patterns, details in terms of, like, if you were interested in this sweater, you could see the yardage and sizes and the weight of yarn and all of that. So you had enough details. It's kind of like when you're shopping for patterns on Ravelry and you get the size range and gauge and what the yarn was. You get all those details in this pamphlet of every pattern so that you can start planning until the book comes out. So you could start swatching and planning and maybe, seeing if you have yarn in your stash or whatever. So I picked up this just because it was really handy to me. I was like, oh, cool. So at least then I could look at the patterns and sort of be thinking and dreaming and imagining. I really love this one on the cover. Yeah, that one's really cool. So we'll see what I end up doing with that. Maybe nothing, maybe something. It all really, boils down to timing. Oh, and DGH also gave me a beautiful souvenir canvas bag. I love it. It says Vogue Knitting Live New York. What a nice extra touch. Really, really love it. I hope they had a great show. I think they're a really cool company, and I was so happy that that I saw them, and it's so affordable. Really nicely beautiful yarns that are very, very affordable generally. I think that's all I have for you. Oh, I wanted to share one last thing. This isn't a finished object that I made, but Lorian gifted me these cute mitts that have this beautiful knit collage trim on them. And I think she said the main color is hand spun, not by her, but by someone else. She shared the card with me. Hand dyed, at least. Yeah, but it's just beautiful. But yeah, really cute mitts. These will be great for driving. Because in the morning, often my steering wheel is so cold and I scramble to get gloves on. So mitts are far easier to put on than gloves. So yeah, I am really excited to try these out and to use them. And it was such a sweet, wonderful gift. I don't think anyone has ever knit for me. They've knit for my babies. I've had them knit for my babies in the past, but not for me. So this was really, really cool. A really nice, sweet gift. I was happy to receive that. Thank you so much, Lorian. Yeah, loved it. All right. Oh my goodness. It's another week. Another episode has slid by, and it did not prepare the Exploring Woolly Myths section, and I also do not have spinning. I don't have any hand spinning. Just haven't, I don't know what I've just got to sit at the wheel one of these evenings and just start going, because you don't have to spin for long before you have a lot. So, I mean, making a skein yarn doesn't take too long. I can make a skein yarn in a couple nights. So, yeah, I need to just get back to it. And the woolly myths, I need to get back to that too. I'm just kind of waiting for all the extra stuff that I'm carrying around in my brain due to the move to just like kind of vacate and like settle, so that I have room to explore myths. So, but I do intend to get back to them. So, and I know many of you have posted questions and you're probably like, what the heck? What are you doing? It's 6 weeks into the new year. You haven't done anything. I'll get to it. I promise I will get to it. I want to get to it. And it's not because I think I should. It's because I want to. So know that. But anyway, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed this episode and hearing a little bit about Vogue and seeing some footage. I didn't have a lot to say because I didn't go on Saturday. I also did not attend. I signed up for a class. I didn't attend it because it was yesterday and it was just too much for me. I just have too much going on that I just didn't have the bandwidth to go in and have a kind of frenetic day, as it appeared to be from the pictures and stuff. So I'm just trying to just go with the flow, listen to my body, mind my mental health, and just take it easy on myself and lower my expectations of myself and all of that, just so that I can manage to get through what is one of the most stressful things in our lives. They say moving, changing jobs, and getting married are probably add divorce in there too. Any sort of life change thing, having a baby, those are all like known stressors for us in our lives. And I think it's important to observe yourself, spend some time observing and minding your mental health. And that's what I'm doing. So yeah, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.